Welcome to another live stream here at Lightingbot. We are here to, I suppose, shed light to your darkness. You know, I've been playing Diablo reference. Come on. So today we are going to talk about being or staying relevant. Could be anything, could be something. I don't know. We have to unwrap this because we know there's a lot to talk about here. Hello, Paul. Paul. Good to see you, Paul.
Oh, Polygon, hello.
He's calling us nerds. I don't know.
Dude,
Are we nerds? Are we geeks? I'm not sure, man.
The definition of nerd has changed a lot. FMA, what's up, man? I recognize that thumbnail.
Hello,
Up, dog.
FMA. Hello, Lily.
Lily.
There's quite a few people coming and going. We never know these days.
In and out. Hello, William. Hello.
William. So today, if people want to, we are also trying a call-in. Basically, you get the link. You can join into the call. You can give your point of view, and then I can kick you out afterwards. Straightforward and simple. So if anyone is comfortable doing that, you're more than welcome to do that. Hey, Wesley. All right. So I'll not put the link just yet, but if anyone has something to share that they don't want to type, let me know, and we can invite you into this very podcast, and you can voice your thoughts on this. All right. So staying relevant. Hey, Quentin. What is staying relevant? Let's first contextualize the definition as usual. What are we talking about? Staying relevant in what? Life, relationship, work, being important, being influential, being up to date technology wise. What are we talking about here?
There's a lot there, man. I mean, it's so this topic was my idea. I was like, yeah, we got it.
I was about to put it all on you.
Yeah?
Yeah,
I was like, dude, Chris is like, I'm just gonna ride the train and see where
I'm just waiting for you guys to answer.
So I mean, like, there's the main reason I wanted to bring this topic up is because when you look at like people jumping into games, the first thing you see is they're switching gears from I'm going to be building my portfolio because I need to get the job to I got the job and now I have this anxiety to continue to build the portfolio, but they're already doing 8 hours of art and game development that day. So there's this like shift that has to happen. And I have to tell every single person that jumps in every time without fail that you have to like relax and you have to not worry about like trying to build your portfolio up, because that's what you're doing in your day-to-day now. And whenever the product is done that you're working on, there it is. And now you can update your portfolio and you get the little bit of rush from that. But yeah, there's a lot to it. I was talking to you a little bit about it right before we started on it as well.
Yeah, for sure. Chris, what are your thoughts on it?
It depends. Like, I think you can look at it from a couple of different lenses, right? Like being relevant, it's a bit tricky because I mean you have people who are comfortably hired at their companies after they landed the job and haven't really done any personal art for a decade. That doesn't make them less relevant for the company because they can still do everything awesomely at the company. You know? So yeah, it's a bit tricky in that sense. But I've always, like, personally though, I've always been in the try hard every day kind of person, learn a little bit.
So you're naturally relevant at all times, Chris. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
I am relevancy.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I don't know. This is a tricky topic for me because I mean, I just say the same stuff that I always say, right? Like you just have to keep up. Like, a warrior always strives for continuous improvement. Like it's if you look at there are a lot of like Japanese
Bushido Radsby.
proverbs. Yeah, exactly. Japanese proverbs. What are they called? Proverb? Yeah.
Proverbs,
Yeah, exactly. About these types of things, right? And it's all about just like even just a little bit of effort every day, right, amounts to something bigger, you know. Yeah. So I mean, and you say this a lot as well, right? Like never stop learning, and yeah, I think it's important. But yeah, I don't really have. I mean, I tend to learn every day, so different things. Yeah, I'm not sure if I have any kind of.
You built it into your process.
Yeah, I don't really have any other perspectives on the whole thing, right? Like.
All right, thank you. Goodbye then.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna go play Diablo. I think I won this podcast.
Amit, do you have anything you wanted to add to it?
Yeah, so I mean, first thing we need to probably think about is there is relevance to whom, right?
Yeah,
I would say, Paul being a very good example, name dropping him. He's just relevant, watching a lot of courses. He gives people, a recommendation of what courses to do. So that's one way of doing relevant. But he's a teacher, right? So he's an educator. But I would say he's probably still very relevant, even though he's an educator. I would consider him quite up to date to what people are doing, even though he's not a game developer, right? So we have to understand what are we talking about in terms of relevant. When I was teaching, I had to do something similar to in terms of staying up to date, because you're not in the trenches fighting for your life and trying to keep your motivation up, and as some of the people say, waiting 5 years if you're an outsourcing company to release that game just to prove that you can do it, that you're relevant.
You've been doing things.
Yeah. So that's where I think is the biggest concern for a lot of people in the chat as well, is that if you work on projects, especially big studios like not gonna mention any studios, but a lot of big studios take like 4 or 5 years to finish a game. That's a long time, especially for a junior who's starting out, to start working on a big project. 5 years, not doing any portfolio maybe. How do you know they're relevant, and how do you know they're up to date? And in a different perspective, a lot of people I ask to come on the interview, they say no to come because they don't feel they're relevant, because they don't have anything new to show in portfolio, and they can't show anything that they're working on either. So they don't feel they're important or not relevant either. So these are quite a few things to think about how people think and feel about themselves, of how they view what is relevant. And I'm more than happy to keep reading the chat as well. So chat, please give your point of view about relevancy, and what do you think, and how do you stay relevant? We would love to know a bit more about from you guys as well. So what is the chat saying anyway?
They're all saying hi.
I mean, this is the most important part. I could actually use some Diablo. I totally agree. I'm currently level 52, just logged off to come onto the stream, okay? So
I rushed my lunch in order to play 2 side quests before going back to work. Thankfully, I live like 5-minute walk from the office. So,
what level are you? All right, I'm sidetracking.
Oh man.
Anyway, so
this is a gaming podcast now.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Hey, it's part of being relevant, isn't it? To play games as well, or is it not?
Yes. No. Yeah.
Oh man.
You're right.
Yeah. This is
a big
one of
topic.
the reasons I wanted to bring Chris on for this specific topic.
Oh, you know my feelings about this.
Chris is the hardest gamer I've ever watched game
hard.
He games way hard. Like he'll be. I'm focusing on art. You'll see him cancel his stream and he'll just stop streaming. Chris, you just got to stream your gaming. I'm telling you, maybe. Stream your gaming and talk about why you're looking at that game.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I mean there's a surprising amount of game developers who don't play games, or play a lot of games, or don't stay up to date with the new games coming out, right? And they can be the same people designing your future games in any aspects, right? Like level design, game design, whatever, right? And it's a pet peeve of mine when I hear these people say that they don't play video games or try and keep up to date, right? Because they act very high and mighty sometimes about like theories and stuff, but they're not like playing the latest stuff on the market. So like in terms for like staying relevant, at least in the design department, I feel like it's really important to just know about the competition and always keep up to date. And yes, obviously that means play a lot of games to be relevant, but you kind of have to, right? I think it's good for everybody to play video games.
I'm playing games mainly so that I can continue to be friends with Chris Radsby.
Yeah,
the moment
that is
I
the
quit playing
requirement.
video games, the moment
You're
I
out.
quit playing video games, he's like, get out of here. Like,
Get out of here, bro. Nah, it's yeah, I don't know. I tend to balance everything now, like, because I'm not up to like my other game dev friends, right? They're like you say, like they've already completed the game, or they're level 50 or something, and I'm like level 23 or something, and I'm like, I'm really trying hard to like balance up my work stuff, project stuff, and gaming, but it is hard when games like Diablo come out.
It is quite hard. I mean, the only reason I'm level 50 is because I was up to 3 at night this whole week playing, because it's the only time I have to play, because I'm making updating courses and stuff now. So I was like, gotta play sometime, and my brother is playing and his friends are playing, and I don't want to have the FOMO effect of staying too much behind. So I was like,
Yeah.
I gotta keep up.
it's okay, man. They can play with you again. It'll balance out the difficulties. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
No, because
Have
I'm
them-
going on vacation next week. They'll be
Oh
far
no.
ahead.
Yeah, they're gonna go way ahead of you.
man.
So that's how you stay relevant. But what are we talking about? I feel we're only talking about practical and technical skills, though.
Yeah.
Mm.
Is that what we consider only as relevant?
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Every time we have one of these podcasts, I'm like, okay, I know what we're gonna talk about. And you drop things like that, and my brain goes, and it just leaks. It's building up in my headset right now. It's pooling.
But what does it mean to be relevant when it's not about the hard skills?
Okay, so let's ask you,
okay,
Chris, first. Then, Chris, how do you know you're relevant, and how do you decide if someone else is relevant?
Okay, I mean, how do I know if I'm relevant? If you own the company, then you're relevant.
Relevancy.
No, exactly. I mean, how do I know I'm relevant? Like I don't care.
Yeah, you just.
I don't really care. Is that weird? It's confidence generally. Like I feel like it could always be useful, even if I stop making art altogether. Like I can't make art anymore. I still feel confident that I could be relevant in a advisory position, like directing a whole art team. Like this is what you should focus on. This is how you should handle things, right? And that just comes from experience, right? Not everybody has that luxury of experience to be able to do that. I remember when I was a younger artist, though, like I was always working hard to, like the goal was to become a better artist at that point, right? And then my hard work got, like, it was put into that. And I think that stressed me out more than anything, really, because my art skills aren't really all that great in the end, right? Like I feel like I've hit the ceiling of like what I can or what I want to achieve on the art spectrum,
So you became irrelevant in the art area then?
I decided to just leave it, kind of, because I found it more giving to focus on other areas. Like I've always considered myself more of a general game developer than an artist, right? So, and art was just the way into the industry.
Yeah, early on for you, yeah.
So, like, I think you decide on your own relevancy in that sense. I have friends though that have worked like I said, like a long time at companies, right? And then they maybe get dropped from the company, right? And then suddenly it hits them, right? Like they haven't done anything for 10 years. And they're trying to get like a job somewhere else, and that is really rough.
I mean, that's the fear, right? That's the
So
main
while
driver behind like
Jeremy,
initial
why don't you
relevancy.
give your insight, Jeremy, while Chris maybe moves his camera a little bit down towards his face because it looks like you're shrinking.
I don't know. I think my camera thing is like.
Is he?
I-
I was like, what's happening?
That's much better.
Oh man. I mean, Chris is pretty on point when it comes to like figuring out what you want to be like focusing your time on, right? Because
yeah.
arguably speaking, like you can focus on anything and it's pushing your understanding and your knowledge, which is kind of the initial concept I had of what it means to be relevant. There is the fear that you stagnate, and I imagine for people that are very fresh into the industry, that fear is very, very real feeling.
Yeah.
And then when you're later in the industry, the fear comes back in that kind of same tone. And when I say the fear comes back, I don't think I've hit that phase yet. I think maybe in like 5 years, there's the fear that like, am I still relevant? You know, you see people join your team. They were born. I'm not gonna call out the person's name, but there's a person on my team that was born in the year 2000, and they are an amazing artist. And I'm like, man, I remember 2000, and I was not even thinking about anything relevant at the time.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to see where people are at now because you learn so quickly. So the curve is, and everyone's aware of this, right? The curve is there, and it's continuing to climb at this exponential rate. So you can't help but look at it, and it starts to stress you out. Eventually, you either ignore it, and you are becoming irrelevant and not paying attention to it, or maybe it's fine. I don't know. So like for me, this is the kind of the reason I wanted to get into streaming as well, is because it forced me to put time down and focus on actually producing something. Even if it took forever, it's just me moving the mouse around, pushing some verts around, and just kind of trying stuff out. Oh, that's a cool tool. I'm going to try play around with that. It's very surface level, but it keeps me understanding the stuff that's happening. And for me, that's kind of how I feel like I'm staying relevant, is more through knowledge and understanding of like how the development of the industry is shifting, like where it's
It's
heading.
learning, right?
It
doesn't matter how you learn. You can
Right.
learn from tutorials. You can learn from like you're doing, like noodling around, and you can also learn from juniors, right? And we all do, kind of like they're coming into the industry fresh. They have different perspectives, right? So like I tend to take in a lot of information they have to say about like and how they work, and then what they don't have, what they lack, right, when they're getting into the industry, juniors, like people in general, right, they're lacking knowledge of production. And is this like a good way to work? Like what happens if we scale this workflow 500 times up to a AAA production? Will it work? This type of thinking, they don't have that because they don't have the experience or don't even know how production works. So but they're still providing that fresh perspective, right? And yeah, I mean, a lot of us just learn from them as well when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Let's put some of the chat stuff on the screen as well. So FMA says he talks to Jeremy a little bit. Usually when you're working in original IP, then you will be able to show, but when you're outsourcing studio, you have -1, -2, depending on how many years, kind of what we mentioned as well. Pull things, it's a layer topic, which I think we are realizing as we talk. It's different perspective of what's relevant, I think. What else do we have? Maybe a suggestion here. Maybe have a goal of completing at least one project a year after landing a job is a healthy balance. Depends though, what is a project? What's the size of the project? I think people are capable of doing a project a month if you keep it like small and consistent. So rather than saying a year, I would encourage you, BS Art, to do one a month, whatever that might be. That's
One a month
for you. Yeah, one
Wait,
a month.
what?
Why not?
No, I mean,
So-
your goal is to become fast, like to make it
Faster,
easier
better,
to stay
yeah.
relevant. It's one of your main goals. Like maybe the top goal, in my opinion, should be to become faster, more productive. You work faster, you produce more, you fail faster, right? Like the point is to just continuously fail fast so that you eventually end up doing great stuff. But but if you're taking a long time just making assets, for example, then yeah,
I feel like I'm being called out.
I mean,
no, I don't think so.
No, I'm just
but
kidding.
it's important.
you
Like you see,
are.
you always see like the
Mm.
the really good artists, right? They're like super blazing fast, right?
They're crazy fast.
Yeah, and it's important, like because at least then it means you can output more, more work, more stuff, learn faster, learn more.
That's kind of what Puneet was saying as well. That
Trial by
just keep
fire.
an eye out for new tech in the industry, keep experimenting with new stuff as they come out. For me, that's a bit hard to do when staying relevant because a lot of the stuff is content production for me. So I do have to stay relevant, but at the same time, the time it takes to make deep dive content, there's too much tech that's come out by the time I've like finished my content, basically. So I think that's kind of a difficult thing. You guys ready for MK1? Is that a Mortal Kombat?
Mortal Kombat 1. I'm curious.
I thought Mortal
Are they
Kombat was
remaking
with
it?
the C. Oh, it was
Or
okay.
what?
I'm curious. Because I
Curious.
all I've seen is a trailer.
So Quentin says he or she wasn't relevant for years, understood of his type of the job, guess the curiosity comes with the interest in the job. I think it's important to address relevancy. To stay relevant, you have to learn stuff you're not really interested in as well. Like it's very difficult to stay relevant and only learn what you want to learn. Like from a lighting arts point of view, when I was doing lighting, I am mostly interested from a personal point of view on the artistic, creative, fundamental things. But if I want to stay relevant and get higher up and more specific projects, and in the coming years, I do need to pick up more tech stuff. I need to pick up more coding stuff, more shading stuff. And then it comes down to, as Chris said, either you stay relevant, you throw in the towel and say, screw it, or you just pivot to something else, right? And that's okay, as long as you know why you're doing it and the reason behind it, for sure. There's nothing wrong with it. You're not failing, but I think it's important to acknowledge that tech and art is becoming a one single thing, and you cannot just survive doing one thing anymore. You kind of have to have a fundamental knowledge of staying relevant in these other areas as well.
Talking on the one single thing, right? I want to say that the development I'm starting to see with environment art, at least, or level artists, is that it's becoming broader again. It became hyper focused, at least in AAA, and now I'm noticing is there's this demand to push to be a little bit more general, a little bit more technical, a little bit more understanding of the other department's needs, while still trying to be a level or environment artist. There was a question in chat that I wanted to highlight from William Alexander. It's like the opinions of how much companies should be investing in their own talent to keep them relevant. And this came up with my partner. I was talking to her right before the stream. We were having some food and just talking about like how do you stay relevant? And she's not in games. And she kind of highlighted that most industries kind of have a budget for that stuff. And a lot of the games industry has some form of a budget. Usually it's called like learning and development. It's usually a department called learning and development. And there's a set budget amount for each person or each employee, if you want to say it like that. But it feels like maybe there's, I don't know. I feel like I don't have a sense of our industry is pushing so much more outside of work, whereas other industries are making time inside of your work hours to push for you to maintain relevancy, or learning and knowledge sharing is happening while at the office, not like in your free time.
Yeah,
the games
that is
industry
the
is not
issue,
doing
right?
that at all.
Usually you'd have companies and they would be like, oh, we have a budget for that, we have accounts or whatever for all these sites, right? But they are not setting aside time for you to actually learn during work hours. Very few companies do that, right? Which I think is I don't know what to say. Like, it's fair. Like, it depends on what the project demands, right? Like, if it demands you to work, like, because projects, right, they're 2-3 year cycles. By the time you're like in production, right, you have already settled, hopefully, the pipeline and the workflows that you're going to work with for the rest of the project, right? This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it.
Yeah, it gets locked in.
Like there's like in the company's point of view, there's no point in you learning how to do all these other things. Like we're not even using that. If you want to learn it, we have stuff you can learn from, right? But it's not going to be on project time, right? That said, though, I still think it's probably a good thing to have that. Though I'm like, I prefer learning within the team, right? So like I prefer like if me and Jeremy was in a team, we had a bunch of other artists, right? I prefer, all right, cool. Jeremy is like prepping like a workshop or something regarding a specific subject and teaches the team how to do a thing, right? All right, you're good at making this rocks, cliffs, or whatever, and then we have a sculpting session, and stuff like this.
So internal.
I think I prefer that because it's also kind of team building wrapped into it as well.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think. In the game industry, I do know a lot of people who are also very protective with their knowledge. So they don't want to do knowledge sharing because it's very competitive. So they don't want to come in a position where other people are like easy to replace you and stuff. So they choose not to share it or not to do anything anymore. Some people even used to share and then decided, no, I don't want to share anymore because it's now difficult. And I occasionally joke about it because like I'm training lighting artists specifically, and they are obviously, some of them are really great and probably will replace me in the future, and I'm open about joking it that this is great talent, I'm going to lose my job because these people are awesome, and I think there is a truth on it. But I think studios probably should spend more money, and there should be like a day in a week, really, like Google used to do at least, where you have a day and you kind of develop new ideas or you try new things. That's not necessarily about the actual project or the deadlines, but it's more about innovation, and it's more about making sure you're learning different things. And I remember we were doing this when I was teaching. It was called the T education. It's more common now than when I was doing it, but we were I'm a strong believer of being a generalist first and then narrowing down, and then being a generalist a little bit again, and then narrowing down a little bit, double down again, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm doing other stuff outside of lighting to catch up a little bit, get my generalist knowledge back on a good foundation, and then back onto it, because it builds upon whatever you're specializing in, because you're keeping up with it. So that's my viewpoint on that.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because like for me, I was the reverse. I jumped in trying to be as specialized as possible. Like I was able to convince my school to convert my character class into me building dioramas for other people to put their characters on. Like I didn't want to do characters at all. So I was able to convince them to let me sculpt rocks.
But what, they had your whole class make characters?
Yeah. Yeah, because it was a character class. Yeah, it's very old school, man.
Wait, you made an environment for your character class?
Yeah.
And it was like a general
right
3D.
there.
I just was like, I'm going to build
this is how this benefits you.
And then, I built platforms for all of them to put their characters on, But like, I'm coming from that angle, right? And to me now, I guess being a lead, the stuff that I'm learning now is more production oriented at work. But I feel like that's giving me more of an edge and an understanding generally when it comes to production and knowing how to work with other teams and what does it actually mean to meet deadlines and tracking all. I mean, Chris knows I'm all about documentation and tracking stuff. So
yeah, OCD stuff.
I'm like kind of OCD when it comes to organizing information.
You're very good at that. You're very good at that.
But
you're an inspiration. No, I'm completely serious when I say that too. Like, it looks like I'm mocking, but I'm like, honestly, it's awesome to have those skills. Like, if you want to be relevant, like, know how to write good documentation.
Oh, dude, documentation's super important. That's a whole other topic. I don't want to go on a tangent about it. But like, now that I'm a lead, I'm noticing and this is great for me because I wanted to understand other departments and how they interface with our department, right? And seeing how those all interconnect is extremely important. And now I'm starting to understand more of the broader scope of game development. So outside of that, the only other thing that I really feel like I could push myself to be further is looking at like traditional arts. Like I didn't dive nearly deep enough into traditional arts. Like once I got into 3D, it was game over. And I was just like, oh, I'm going to stop oil painting. I'm just going to look at. So I like narrowed down really early. And now all I'm doing these days is trying to make my view wider, to become more general, more understanding of other processes outside of just environment art.
Is that why you started Warhammer painting? You were like, maybe not oil painting. I'll do Warhammer painting instead.
So the reason I started doing Warhammer painting was literally because I saw other people that I look up to doing something outside of game development or pushing their art, but it's still a creative field, you know? And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, that sounds fun. Dude, it's so fun.
But that has to stay relevant. But that has you stay relevant in terms of networking, though, right? Because you're sharing interest and hobby outside, and you're relevant in terms of the personal part, right? Being relevant,
you're not just a machine.
Skills. Yeah. People relate to you, and that's technically also part of relevancy. Because you're not gonna get the job if no one likes you. Let's be honest. Unless you're genius, so people might tolerate you then, but most of us aren't super geniuses. Last I checked. So let's take a question. Mero is asking, do you plan or have you talked about things related to Junior's first job and applying to jobs in terms of being relevant and getting that opportunity, basically, I imagine. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know. You got something, Chris? I have a whole other tangent I can go off on for this.
Have you had any interns or juniors lately, Jeremy?
Not lately, no.
Yeah, I had some, right? It's interesting, right? Like this whole thing we're talking about, but being relevant and stuff. Like interns, they relive that in a very intense small period, right? Because they're like, yes, got my break. You know, I'm gonna intern at this company. And then they have a few months at the company, right? But they might or might not get hired. Maybe there is 2 positions out of X amount of interns, and they're all like, there's like this internal competition, like it's mentally straining because like it's internal battle for like who's the best intern that's providing or like doing the best, most reliable, and there it becomes very obvious like which ones have the hard skills to do something and the soft skills and the good mix of both, right? So yeah, and they definitely go through that, right? Like it's very obvious when schools then like, because it's this whole relevancy topic, it's tricky. Schools are not always educating students to be relevant,
unless your name is Paul.
Yes. I have name dropped him before as my this is my go-to guy, but yeah, it's something I've noticed, right? Because you have students, for example, coming into the studio and they're like, oh, I'm doing great, because they're comparing themselves to other students and the work produced by students before them, right? But in a studio setting, what makes them relevant for us is a completely different skill set. Social skills, organizational skills, fundamental game art skills. Like I shouldn't do I have to explain what a LOD is or how to make LODs or why collision matters or texel density or is that not something that should be taught? And them learning that inside of the studio, is that a waste of time when they could be learning other stuff? There's a whole bunch there. I'm not really sure.
There's also a different personality in terms of that. Some people don't mind mentoring people on the job, while maybe you're stricter in this area than other people as well, right?
No, I love mentoring people. I'm just baffled that they lack some fundamentals that should be there sometimes, and I've seen it repeatedly, right? So yeah, and I think like educators in general should or like it doesn't. Yeah, I think we should be more visible about what is relevant for maybe different companies at different levels. You know, like AAA, AA. You know, what skills are relevant. You know, what are we
Yeah.
looking for? Like I've written articles about like this is what I expect from a junior artist, right? And I've written just a list. Like I expect you to know all these things as a junior artist, right?
But things are more difficult, right? Because it's been an ongoing topic on for a while now. It comes up all the time that it's difficult to find junior jobs, and the senior job descriptions are really lead descriptions, and vice
Yeah.
versa. I've been having conversations with people who have written senior on their job description, and then later they admit, well, it's really lead, but we don't want to give the person lead just yet. We want to test you first as a senior and then give you lead, but we want to pay you less in the beginning, so we don't have to pay you the right price
Yeah.
afterward. It's,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
all
yeah.
those these
Yeah,
things.
no,
that's
yeah, it's
happening.
true. It's true. Like an intern shouldn't have to know all the things I'm expecting, but a junior should. Like by the time they're ready to be a junior, I feel like there's a list there for sure that they should know, in my
Man,
opinion.
you're talking about junior positions being. I want to see if I can find the article that
I don't
dropped
really care
like
about
last
juniors
week.
being like
Yeah.
making the best. Like I don't want them. I don't necessarily think they should or have the
You don't want to
ability to
clean up
create
after them,
like the
Chris? Is that
most
what you're
art.
saying?
No, that's fine too. Like they learn some stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's hard to like gather my thoughts regarding this.
It's a
I feel.
difficult thing to kind of cover because it can be really broad and also extremely specific, especially based on the person.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
The article I was thinking of was saying basically that the UK's job opportunities, only 3% of it is junior positions right now.
Yeah.
I need to find
Yeah,
that article, so I'm not just dumping this information on you.
I mean, it's definitely true, but in that context, which I won't go too much into because it's a different topic. But advice for juniors is ignore the titles or the job descriptions. If you think you have the necessary skills, and even if you don't, apply. Most people have an insane expectation in the job description, and I have never really covered all of them anytime, and I don't think anyone can really. And if they do, I'm pretty confident they're lying and they're learning on the job anyway. I've seen people get the job they shouldn't have, and I've seen them on the screen and they're like sitting there watching YouTube and learning on the spot. Like it's not unheard of. So just be honest, just be confident, like Chris, and just go head on strong. Make send in the application, and
No,
I'm
I
sure
definitely
things
agree
will go
though.
fine.
You should maybe not care about those things. Like if it says 3D artist, like if you're a junior, just go for it. Or even if you're, out of school, like if you're a graduate or whatever, you just go for it.
So let's move from junior to indie game developers, because I know, Chris, you have mentioned it a few times as well, that you want to do XYZ specifically for this target group. So what steps can indie game developers take to stay relevant and stand out in the industry?
That's a
I don't know,
big
it depends on what. Yeah, it depends on what capacity, right? Like if you're like a solo indie person like me, then or like I'm not now, right? But like what I do in my spare time, I feel like you should definitely 100% not tutorial hop, which happens a lot, right? Like you're learning how to do indie dev stuff, you're learning how to make stuff, right? And what you're showing to the public always is stuff that you just straight up copied from tutorials. That's generally a bad idea because people won't take you seriously unless you take what you've learned, make it completely your own, and then show it, right? Otherwise and people have problems. I see this everywhere, right? People have a lot of problems with this, like because they're watching tutorials, they're doing coding, they're following along, and they never go from like it's just a straight copy, like in their thinking. They never learn how to like extrapolate what they've learned and put their own stuff on top of it, right? So they're like, I don't like whenever like there are a lot of that stuff. But maybe if you who was it, Louise?
Yeah.
Maybe if you say something like in more detail about what you mean maybe. I'm not sure like at what scale, because indie development can be everything from one person to like 100 people.
Right.
Kind of, I don't know exactly how I should parse that, in a way.
If you take it from like the beginning, let's say you're fresh Chris out of internet learning world,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're getting your first like indie game. You're trying to get that first role in a indie scenario. Like, how are you standing out? What's something that you feel like makes you stand out?
I don't know. I think in general you have to realize what your strengths are, and take advantage of that, right? And then, so like my strengths are like I do tech art and environment art, right? And I do, a little bit of coding. So like a lot of my strength is just from being able to make nice looking stuff, And like if you're an artist in indie dev, you should definitely make sure that you're doing that. A lot of people come from, there are a lot of different industries people come from doing indie dev, right? Like they can be, like software engineers doing indie dev, or like they come from web, or they're concept artists or whatever. And you should always like use your strengths in that sense, I feel.
So you mean to stay relevant in indie is maybe making impact?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
like you can in any topic, like just big splash.
After big splash. I mean, that's, say it, like it opens doors.
It's
so
true.
Does that anything to do with social influence then? To make impact as an influencer, or as Jeremy does with his streams and everything? Is that something that impacts relevancy because you're always in people's mind in some way or another, and when people are looking for something specific or some skill set, they're more likely to pick you because you are staying relevant by being present?
I would say present, yeah. Maybe not so much, because I responded to it as well, but it's like, it's not so much about being an influencer or a social influence, but it's more about being present or being able to show up on people's, scroll by. I constantly tell people that are working on their portfolios or a single piece in my mentorships, or even just in the Discord, like have a cadence to when you show your stuff. And then have also a cadence to when you ask for feedback at certain points in your production, because that's how you keep your name relevant. You present your work, people get invested, they start to remember your name, they remember the piece, they see the growth, so they can get in their mind a sense of your personal growth, and that is like kind of what pushes them further. And because of that, you'll end up getting offered a position because they remembered you. Even before,
exactly.
I think it's important. I think it's important to be like, if you have a unique name, definitely use that name. Like if you, I don't know. I think like even if you have a very generic name, right? It's a problem if you want to, people to remember like, oh, who made that piece of art, or who made this or that, right? Then you need a kick-ass nickname. Or if you have a unique name, like I'm Radsby, right? So it's unique. It's probably only
totally
my family
rad
in the whole world. Totally Radsby, and I don't know. but if you I don't know if you know do you know Kula, the Unreal guy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like.
You hear that, you instantly see pictures.
Yeah, boom. Like, okay, cool. He made all these cool lighting things. He made that cool storm. He made Stray, right? They made that game eventually, right? Everybody knows just because of the name, right? And I think having something unique like that is very important, to just have an identifier,
Makes sense. In your case, it's becoming be confident like Chris is going to be the new mantra.
I think, yeah, I mean, you should be confident. I mean, you're not really gaining anything from not believing in yourself. Such a dumbass thing to say. I'm not even, but like, it's just there's a
if
quote
you could just
from
be
like
more like
Scrub.
Chris. Yeah.
There's a quote from
Scrubs code.
Scrubs
Oh, here we
that
go.
kind of always stuck with me even since when I was young and I saw the show. Right, it was like the janitor saying like every moment spent wishing is time wasted, and that always stuck with me. Right, because it's just it's completely true. Right, like you should just go and get it done.
I think we're gonna have to start name dropping you. Just be like Chris.
Like-
Be like Chris. Come on, bro. Just
I'm
be
gonna
like
make that a
Chris.
shirt, man.
Yeah, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Yeah, it's probably not a good thing.
Thanks, Paul, for the compliments. We appreciate you as well. Much love to you. So your brand as an artist is basically what Chris is saying. That is correct. So you could have any name, and any nickname, I suppose, as well. It's really up to you. But you definitely want to start thinking about brand when you think about relevancy. It's good to have something people can connect you to. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, but Lighting Bot is indirectly becoming something that people are connecting me to. For some reason, over a DiNusty Empire stream, I found out that way because people, that's the lighting guy. Well, thank you. It's not really what I was aiming for, but okay, sure, why not?
Wait, you weren't aiming for that?
No, I was aiming for Lighting Bot to be for everyone, like a space for everyone to have like we're doing now. That's what I'm aiming for. It's not meant to be my brand. It's meant to be our brand. Like I have my own YouTube channel.
Whatever. Yeah, okay.
So that's why I'm like being careful not to have my face on everything because it's not really, you know, we talked about it last time, Chris. A legacy is something that continues after you leave.
Yeah.
So it's not a legacy if it's just my face and then I disappear and it falls. That's not a good legacy. That's not really anything. You have to build something that you go away, it's still happening. It's still someone can take over. Someone wants to take over. That's great. That's what we're aiming for when we build a good community, and that's based on the fact that I built a game organization in Norway and I tried 3 times until I got it right.
3
and
times.
And it took me 8 years to do it. So that has something to do with relevancy. Is how do you make people relevancy? I think being relevant now is difficult for me, but let's talk about how we are staying relevant. Let's give people a perspective and a checklist that they can go, okay, I am doing this, but I'm not doing this. So let's start with you, Jeremy.
Oh man, I feel like I covered it a little bit. Like
checklist. Give us a checklist.
A checklist.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I wasn't prepared for this summit. Hang on, water.
Yeah, take a long sip, dude.
Take a long sip.
Give it some thought.
I mean, so for me, a lot of it has been knowledge. So if you can even if you can be looking at articles, it's laughing. He's trying not to laugh at me so hard right now. Like being able to understand what's happening around you and just be processing that and being relevant to the conversation, if you want to say it like that. You're just looking at the industry and seeing what's happening. And you can do that through a number of sources, right? You get like 80 level or experience points or just anywhere where they're posting articles about new techniques or processes or gaming news that's more relevant to like game development or games that are coming out. Understanding the palette that you're working with, like what's everyone else painting, just looking around. That to me, that's number one, because I feel like that's a pretty low. There's like a low threshold. Like you can do that quite easily, and then it kind of goes up from there. So it's like working on your own personal stuff, setting your own deadlines, trying to build on what you already have. But yeah, man, I don't know, Emmett. I could think about this forever because I don't think I figured it out.
Good answer though. Because I don't think there is a simple answer to this, to be fair. I think staying relevant is an everyday discipline, like we talked about in the previous thing. It's if you want to stay relevant, you need to have a routine. You have to have schedules. You need to kind of stick to it. If you're not doing it in a thoughtful organized, structured, methodology,
Methodology.
yeah, I
Yeah.
guess way, you're gonna fall off the horse, and even staying relevant in terms of playing games, play games, but pick the games that are relevant for you, the type of job you want, the type of companies you want to join. And as Chris mentioned earlier, different companies have different opinion as well about relevancy. There are companies who will never hire lighting artists who doesn't know how to make shaders, doesn't know blueprint. There are companies who would. So you have to understand the pros and cons, obviously. And that level of relevancy is also a direct output of what you get paid as well, right? So the more skills you have, the more relevant you are, the more people are paying. The more visible you are, the more likely you are to get paid higher too. I think there's quite a few things to unpack there. If someone shots fire, well, in my experience, it's much more for community investing than DiNusty Empire or lighting. But
I mean, I totally agree with that, because to some degree, I think about experience points as chem, and that's where my brain goes. But I think from an outward facing point of view, like you go and look at Lighting Bot or Empire, and the people posting in our channels. Most recently, Chris has been posting. Before that, it was myself. So it's like when content gets announced, it's usually myself, right? Whereas with experience points, it's usually whatever experience points is posting, not Kim.
Like what they're featuring, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, to me, if we go back to like how to stay relevant,
Chris is like, that's not important right now. Like
that stuff, F that. No, but like I see it from a little bit of a different point of view, right? Like, so, like for me, for example, like yesterday I had my whole day off, right? It was a national day in Sweden. I spent that whole day learning common UI. I learned how to make UI in Unreal. More than I already know, right? Because to me, what's important, right, is because I know that making UI, for example, is a pain point in Unreal for making indie games, right? So I'm forced. I mean, I really dislike making UI stuff, but I'm forcing myself to like not have this sense of friction every time I work with it, right? So I think like sometimes you just have to tackle like the worst parts of your skills, like head on, to try and get better. Yeah.
Cool. Some questions. What are your thoughts on portrait profile pictures versus personal logo in terms of branding yourself?
I love how the post is with the picture and it's just a little.
Yes.
How you doing? How you doing?
Irony.
I know D-Zone. I hope you're doing well, man.
Irony of the question.
It's really interesting. I think you want to have your face on there, unless I prefer face when it's like you're hiring someone for your company, right?
Yeah.
But if it's you pushing a brand, maybe the brand, right? It's all about like which direction you want to take yourself. And I think that kind of touches on what we were mentioning earlier. It's like, do you want to be the brand, or do you want the brand to be itself and then you're part of it?
I mean, the brand can be your face.
It can be. Yeah.
So it depends what you're doing. If you're an individual and you're thinking of being employee, definitely your face, right? I definitely recommend doing your face. If you're entrepreneur like me, you probably want to split things up or have a brand and with long-term vision in mind. But if you're just a person, I want to get paid doing XYZ. I'm not planning on doing my own stuff, or maybe not even freelancing. But even if you do freelancing, I do recommend then your face and then a sub-brand. If you're doing anything else, like you're going to pay other people or you're going to do something bigger, you definitely want a logo and something else that's separate. It's really no right and wrong answer, but there are different results. People who do them themselves, they are more likely to connect personally. They are more likely to get sponsored deals on YouTube and other places. Or if you have your face everywhere on the camera and on each tutorial, people who do businesses, they are more trusted. So you can show an organization number, you can show the brand, you can show there's a structure and there is a business idea. So they know if you're not in the picture, it continues, right? Which is what we were talking about earlier. So it depends. What if you do personal and then go brand or business, it's hard to disconnect yourself from the business, and it costs a lot of money to make that switch later on. Very common on $1 million companies. You have speakers quite often, they're personal brands, and then they want to retire and they have to spend a lot of resources figuring out how do they get out of this, which is a problem if you again have investors or other people involved, because you are the brand, so you are not going anywhere, because hey, you're screwing our brand if you do, right? So these are the things to think about when it comes to picture, no picture, brand or not brand. Obviously, I'm speaking from professional experience of what I'm doing with my different brands, and these are the pros and cons. It does take time, regardless of choice, though. So that's it.
But
What do
yeah,
you think, Jeremy? Chris?
It's like you're saying for me, like I use Twitter a lot. I like Twitter. I prefer having a face, like seeing a face. It's also helped with networking for, like it's when we have meetups, like you're connected. There's a face there. I personally prefer it. I understand why you wouldn't want to do that though, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
They're two choices. I mean, I've been playing with the idea of like, instead of me posting on the Empire under my login, is to push all of the messaging through a bot, so that it's the server saying it, not me.
Yeah.
And then like if you were to go live, it would go through that instead of you posting it, because then you start to get a consistent message going across. That's the server talking, not us, even if it is us in the background or whatever, right? Because maybe you're too busy, maybe I'm too busy, and the person that posts the message is not us, but it still goes out and it maintains its consistency. But it's
I care about
something I keep playing around. Yeah,
like to some extent, I care about like building my brand with my face and my name, kind of thing. Just to some extent, I'd probably prefer it if it was me still posting. I don't know.
This is Chris saying no immediately.
Yeah, no.
No, it's interesting though, because like that's a pivot that you could make. You know what I mean?
I mean, okay,
if do you do it?
Yeah. Okay, if the bot posts it, but then it should be me like on a picture next to it. Chris is gonna have a stream.
No,
I like that
think
personality type thing.
It's definitely about relevancy, right? Because on Instagram, if you put human faces, because I tried it out because I have multiple Instagrams, you get more people interacting with you and watching your stuff if you have faces on your because we are, as humans, we interact with faces. It's the same with courses. I don't normally have my faces because I want to maybe use it in different purpose, or maybe I want to give it away to someone else in the future. So I want it to be no faces, only voice. There is a huge value in terms of in the game industry anyway. Specifically, I've noticed if you show your face a lot and you do more personal stuff, people are more likely to like you and connect with you. Versus when I do my lighting good stuff, it's less response and people find it less interesting, but also they take it too professional. But if you post as your personality, then either they like you, don't like you, who gives a shit. But at least you'll attract the people that you fit well with, right? So it's pros and cons, right? At least a business brand is safer to ruin, though. That's the thing with the personal brand that I've been trained to avoid, is if you do your personal brand and you screw it up and you change your career, that's with you. Like I know a lot of mentors, they cannot change the brand because their name and the brand they have is stuck to them. So if they went something else, that would follow them because they're too known on those areas, generally speaking. So that's the danger of if you're doing more.
So it makes you less flexible from a branding standpoint.
Yeah. That's why you should have like the brand that we also have talked about a lot, and then you have the people behind the brand more than anything. Last question. Is it normal to be considered for a senior job even though I have no experience? I'll let you guys talk about it while I change my headset.
Oh, you want to go first, Chris?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a hard no for me. I'm not trying to be, because like usually when people are looking for a senior, right? They need someone who can just go in, no questions asked kind of thing, and just know what to do, right? It needs to be more frictionless, right? And the reason why you're seeing a lot of senior postings is that currently in the industry right now, right, there are a lot of new companies being created, a lot, and all of them need people that can come in and make kick-ass games, right? And they're more reluctant to hire juniors because, like, as a startup, you really, if you have the
you need a strong core.
If you have the money already, right, you should start hiring seniors. People know what to do, how to structure, because you're structuring a whole company, you're making a whole everything, pipelines, workflows, So yeah, usually when people look for seniors, chances are, you won't be able to, like, you probably, if you have a recruiter, they would probably just pass that, for that position.
Well, that question though, I think refers to you being approached for a senior position, even though clearly in your LinkedIn or your resume or CV, you do not have that experience. Because
it's
weird because, like, I totally agree with you, Chris, that you have, like, you start a company, you need the core to be people with experience, and then you can start to bring in intermediate and juniors, and then they can help build them up to match the core that you've built, right? If you start up a studio and it's a bunch of people that are very fresh and new and aren't really sure like how it all works, it's going to be a very bumpy ride. It can still happen, but it's going to be extremely bumpy. So usually when a startup happens, it's going to be senior or possibly even experts starting it up.
Usually you can, like, if you're one level below, right? Like if you're an intermediate and then you're approaching, maybe, I don't know. It's tricky. Because I've definitely had interviews where we're looking for a senior, and I've had interviews with juniors and intermediates, and they're giving me good enough of a vibe, like they're knowledgeable, they seem excited, they know what they're talking about. If you're at the interview stage, then I think, like, chances are, like, maybe it could maybe happen. Like, people could, because I've definitely been in situations where I'm like, okay, I think this is going to work out, and then we train them, the rest of the way to senior, essentially. Even though the ad position says senior.
That makes sense.
It depends. If you go in there, you're confident, and like you act like you know what you're talking about. It goes a long way without being all big-headed like me, maybe. But like you go in there confident, and
I want to answer Miro's question real quick. It's like, so investing in new talent isn't a thing at all. It's totally a thing, but it's all based on, like, your risk level that you want to take. If you're just starting a company and you bring on people that are very new to games, that's extremely risky from my perspective.
I think games development is really risky. It's really expensive. It's one of the most
GameDev in general
expensive.
is really risky.
It's really risky. It's a long development time. It costs a lot for the talent. A lot of people don't even know how it works. Even when they start, they're trying to figure it out on the spot. I've been in so many startup companies now, and it's amazing. Like, this is like starting from scratch every time. It's just amazing to see this. It's an amazing experience, but it's also risky. It's expensive. And I don't think people would pay for talent and train you unless they are a really big company and they really are doing something very specific. I've been in some companies that do it, but that's because they don't want someone who has bad habits. So they rather train someone who's fresh and kind of on board.
Yeah, that's another.
Right.
Yeah.
because a lot of people come with bad habits. So one of the risks actually of hiring seniors and veterans is you kind of have to sometimes undo and unlearn certain things that might be out of date or wrong, such as too dark albedos and these things, which is very common for us lighting artists with the 3D people. So that's generally the thing with investment of talent. But again, that's the company staying relevant, right? So there's the relevant as individuals, and that's the company staying relevant and competing against other companies and making sure they survive. So that's a different topic altogether. Like, how do a company stay relevant? And we can also cover that in the near future as well. But as an individual, you need to have the mindset that you're on your own, and you need to put in the work, and you need to put in the hour, and you need to learn. Go to the documentation, and then everything else is a bonus. I think this mentality of, oh, I need the help, or I need someone to feed me something, is very dangerous. And I think it takes longer for you to learn and grow if you don't just say, okay, I'm on my own. And you have to believe yourself, like Chris, and don't give up, and just keep going, keep going, keep going. I sense a bit of self-doubt in the questions, and I think that's okay to have, but don't be doubtful. I think most of us, if we were honest, we failed a bit, we struggled a bit, it was difficult, but we broke through eventually. So you're not alone, I think, in this journey, and we're definitely here to support you anyway.
I have two.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
No,
it's going to be jumping out into.
All right. Okay, so regarding this, like hiring juniors for a young company, like a young indie company, right, can be a very dangerous thing for the company, right? Because you can like, it doesn't matter if the junior is kick-ass at making art, right? If the person doesn't know how to make art the right way for the game, right? That is what matters most. You have to make art that works for the game. And I don't mean in a stylistic sense. I mean like in an actual fundamental technical way for it to make sense for the game. Because you can be... I've seen situations where you have a very young art team. They're making a game. 2 years in, the game is completely unviable. Performance-wise, optimization-wise, memory... all the budgets are blown, right? It's basically almost... So like you spend 2 years and then you have to rework all the art, and the cost for the company is huge doing that stuff, which is why it's very risky to do that. However, this is also why I think, like in general, people who have reached should teach production stuff, valuable stuff like this, so that, because that at least lessen that risk, essentially. So
that's why your checklist is what it is.
Exactly.
For that fear.
That is that why.
Yeah, I do want to add to this that a lot of people don't get work, not because they're not good enough necessarily, but they're all applying to big known companies and big titles. They have a higher talent pool to choose from. So you will often get the no. It has nothing to do with you. It's just there are better, more experienced people that are applying. They happen to be seniors all the time. So yes, do aim for indie studios, less known studios, and trust me, they pay very well because they do have trouble hiring as well because they're not known. So people don't want to work for them quite often. And if you look at my CV, a lot of the companies are not known studios. I'm in them, they're becoming known, they're becoming award-winning studios, and then I was part of the journey, which is something, a lot of people can't say. You either are with someone in the beginning and you're building them up as an award-winning studio, or you're not. So I think there's a different opportunity of learning in a fresh company, in an indie studio, and they pay you better, they take better care of you because you're then their senior, and they now trust you, and then now you're responsible for the outsourcing and the freelancers and the other team members. So I think, I don't know if it's the universities or where people are coaching this, but stop always aiming for the big studios. It's sometimes it's okay to go for smaller studios. A lot of indie developers make fortune, actually.
Getting in is the important part. Actually, I have a friend or acquaintance, I would say, probably Sally. She's the CEO of Silent Games in the UK, right? She had a Twitter thread up where she was talking about like the amount of applicants applying for positions, right? I think she said something about 2,000 applicants for like only a few positions, right? So they're sorting through 2,000 people for us, and they're a small team without like lots of recruiters to do that job for them. So it's perspective, right? Like sometimes, unless you're standing out a lot, you can get lost in the noise, which is also why it's important to actually network, which is why we talked about this before. It's easier generally to get a job if somebody knows you, and who you are and what you do, kind of.
Which brings us back to the relevancy, being, personable and likable and visible online. Unfortunately, it is a sad truth. It is important. So last question, and we'll start closing the stream. We'll take William's question. And if you got the time, I would love to hear what you all think of third-party recruiters versus in-house recruiters in regards to who you should be focused on talking to when looking for a new job. Who wants to start?
Oh, interesting. So my view on this, I will start. I'll just jump into this. Like my view on this is I don't look at third-party and in-house recruiters separately. I just they're trying to fill roles. What I look at for recruiters is their ability to be personable and understand who I am and like what I actually am doing. Like if I get contacted for being a character artist position, like that recruiter's not really they must be just shotgunning out to hit as many people as possible, and then they're just trying to pull numbers in to see who they can. That's my assumption. So I mean, when I look at what's coming in through recruiters, I don't necessarily look at third party versus in-house. I usually just look at like are they actually paying attention to who they're contacting, because I think that's kind of where it goes.
I completely ignore third party.
Interesting.
Completely. I don't engage with any of them. I don't do this to be mean. It's because I feel like they are blanket sending out millions of just like, and it doesn't feel. I mean, there are some third party that I could maybe do because they are like a young recruiting company and they do the extra effort of contacting me and looking me up and being more like personable with the experience, right? But yeah, in general, in-house recruiters, most of the time I answer and I'm really nice to all of them, generally. Yeah.
For me, it depends because I do talk to a lot of them, and I have a lot of bad experience with most third-party recruiters. And I'm very picky with them, and I'm very open with them. So when they message me, I tell them this is my expectation from them, rather than them telling me anything. I'm saying this is what I expect. This is when you should send me emails. I expect to get information about the process. If that's not something you can do, then we shouldn't be continuing, because I need to stay in the loop. Otherwise, I'm the one who's following up on you, and that's unacceptable because you're getting paid to hire me, not the other way around, or people or my students. So for me, there are I've blacklisted probably 8 third-party studios. There's only 2 people and 2 different studios that I probably behind doors recommend. Others I do not necessarily openly recommend because they don't follow up. They don't even check your profile correctly, so you can tell by the type of messages they send. If they do send out emails, they don't tell you the stages you are in. You have to do a lot of the follow-up. Sometimes when people cancel, there's a mistake in the emails and stuff. And I've only met 2 people so far of hundreds that I'm impressed by. As Chris said, they go the extra mile. They give you calls every day if they had to, 5-minute updates. They tell you this is what's happening. That's the level of communication I expect from a recruitment company in general. They do a little bit better in-house, but it's not that much different, except the fact that they are in-house and they have one thing to worry about, they have one thing to focus on, while a third-party recruiter, they often you have to understand the difference between a third party and an in-house. In-house get paid regardless. A third party gets paid if they hire you, so they are spending
Yeah, so they're
time
getting
and
numbers.
energy. And there's a certain percentage of it depending on their ranking and the seniority as well. So, and there's a lot of freelance recruiters, and I'm very careful about mentioning any specific studios and names, but it's you should give everyone a chance yourself and see. But normally I know already when I get an email, I'm like, even if it's a good opportunity, I'm like, no, I don't want to go through the email because I can go to someone else anyway. You know?
What BS Art's saying right now is the thing I wanted to highlight with third party. So definitely, like you guys are both saying, you can kind of identify third party almost immediately, just by the way they're wording. I don't shun them, of course. Like it just kind of I try to be professional.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because they're trying to make money, there's been ones that I've dealt with when I was in the US, and I don't know if this is a thing that happens in Europe, but like BS Art is saying, third party agencies tend to get a cut of whatever the agreement is of your pay. So for example, I went through one back in the day, and that company is my contractor, so I contract through them. So then they get a portion of my pay, and I think they got like, I think it was like 10%, 15% of my salary, which is like
sometimes they get even more.
Yeah,
that's too much.
And that's also not visible to you.
But that's a good
from
thing.
What I experienced.
Yeah, okay. If it's not visible, then maybe.
In some cases, that's good though, because if you have a good recruiter, they're gonna try and get you higher pay as well because of it, right?
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's
because they want
more.
They get more.
Yeah,
as well.
Okay, they might fight that battle for you. Yeah, that makes
sense. Yeah,
sense.
so in my case, I've been lucky with my top one recruiter, Gary, when he was getting me this job that I'm in now, and the other interviews I did with him, he was really good at kind of going back and forth, and I did the final negotiation, but he was very good at getting me a good base, right? And then I could argue the rest for myself, and I think that's very important. But as BS Art is saying, take it with a grain of salt. Talk to other people who you should. There are some recruiters also who are young and they're just doing a job and they're really trying to save money going somewhere else. So you want to pay attention to someone who has the experience. They are sticking around as a recruiter. It's in their best interest to keep you warm, which means they will maybe stay in touch. Like with Gary, I stay with touch with him as a friend now at this stage, right? So that's my relationship with some of my old recruiters. Is I'm a friend with them. So I think it depends. But really, as a junior, you don't have much of a choice, though. You kind of have to go through the process. But I think us three have gone through the trenches a few times, so we can be a bit more particular with our time and requirements, and I think that's okay. That's just mutual respect, I think.
Yeah, we're just in a position that we can demand things, right? Essentially.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word demand, but it's more like this is my boundary. This is what I expect. If are you gonna deliver it, then I don't want to waste your time. And I've reached the point where if I do talk to someone, I am very clear in saying I'm not promising that I'll say yes to them, but I'll do the interviews, I'll go through the process, and then I will consider it. So then it's up to them to say, okay, I'll put the work in for you, even though you might not say yes. And that's it. All right, guys and girls, people, and it's
we got into it.
They and these and z's and zays and all those pronouns, whoever you are. Thank you for watching. Click like, subscribe. I know you're watching. I'll leave a positive comment so other people can watch these videos. Stop being a lurker. Stop being a ninja watcher. Click that like. Click that subscribe. Do us a favor. Okay, and Alexander, you're a bit too late, but we'll remember to talk to you about that as well. Where can we expect the deep course on UE5 from Lightning Bolt? Well, that's a secret, but we are we are doing something. Anyway, we are always doing something somewhere. But at the moment, I'm trying to finish off the UE5 DaVinci color grading workflow. Then I'm doing Unity. Then I'm doing another Unity. And then I'm doing time management and discipline course, because I think people need it, and that's about it. And then eventually Unreal 5. I'm not in a hurry really. There's so many great Unreal 5 content out there that I'm gonna consume first, and then go, how can I do it better? And then I'll come back with the greatest Unreal 5 course ever. Okay, that's how we
Very
roll
nice.
here.
Oh, I got Discord critiques tomorrow on stream. I
Yes,
just remember that. Yes.
post it on the chat if you already have the stream up or you don't have the stream up.
No, I'm on Twitch.
Like
man.
me, you don't see that's. See, I have my streams up on YouTube and everything. Wait, what? You don't? You should do like multiple streams, like on LinkedIn and Twitch.
No,
and
Twitch just blocked that, man.
Oh, that's true. You're one of those people. You
Yeah.
can't do no
Right.
freedom.
They
No
got even
branded
more
streams.
hardcore about it just recently. We should
Right.
talk
Yeah.
about that at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might be on YouTube sooner than you think.
No, we should go to like these new platforms. They're much better.
Kick
actually.
or whatever
Yeah.
they're called. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you, guys. I'll talk to these two nice fellows. And thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. We do appreciate it. It was really fun. Thank you for your engagement. Really good engagement, actually. Really, really love it. Thank you. Gonna say goodbye. And then I'm really just gonna play Diablo. That's my schedule for the day. So that's it. See you.